questioning today with Mr. Muys. Mr. Muys, the floor is yours. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the senior representatives from Via Rail who are with us today at Transport Committee. Certainly much of the attention about the holiday travel mess that we've seen has been directed at the airlines and the minister's inaction, and that has been front and center. But we do know that there was this unfortunate incident that spanned a few days in the Toronto to Ottawa-Montreal corridor. And, yes, weather, yes, the CN derailment were factors, but our interest in the committee here is to look at passengers and, dig deeper into that. What happened, what could have been prevented, what lessons can we learn from that, and where are there gaps in federal regulation that we can address? And so your input is valuable in that, and I know your desire is to see the same. I would note on behalf of my colleagues and I think all on the committee, disappointment that we had invited CN to appear, and it sounds like that perhaps they may appear in the future, and so we look forward to that. We do appreciate the statement that you put out on January 10th and that you reiterated here this morning. And so let me start with that, because one of the commitments you made in there was to offer, as you said again this morning, a full refund to passengers along with travel credits to those that were on trains that were completely demobilized. So I just want to ask if that has already happened, and if not, when it's going to happen.
So maybe I'll invite my colleague Rita Toporowski, who's responsible for our client interfaces, to address the committee on this matter.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Mr. Muys. On behalf of Via Rail and as the Chief Customer Officer, I'd like to apologize to all the passengers that were more than inconvenienced, but were actually in uncomfortable conditions over a lengthy period of time overnight on December 23rd, and to the passengers that experienced cancellations and disruption to their travel plans. With respect to your specific question, yes, we have actioned all the refunds. For the passengers that were impacted overnight on the 23rd into the 24th, all the passengers impacted at that point in time with lengthy delays and finally got to destination, we gave them full refunds, and in addition to that, 100% credit for future travel should they wish to use it. For any of the passengers that were inconvenienced due to cancellations that happened on the 24th through the 26th, we've also actioned full refunds, and that was completed on January 15th.
Okay. That's good to hear, because certainly we've heard the stories of, obviously those that were stuck on the train, 18 hours where washrooms were out of service and, food and water appeared scarce by the end. And so, not just a refund, some sort of compensation or recognition of the hardship that they endured is appropriate. So it's good to hear that has happened. So I guess what are and I know you're conducting an investigation, you've brought in external experts, which we applaud, but, where were the failures? What, how, where was the lack of preparedness for this to happen? I mean, certainly, over the course of 18 hours, one would think we could evacuate a train. So, why did that not happen?
So, it's a number of events that led to the situation we had to deal with between the 23rd and the 24th. Weather was one of them, but obviously the power outages caused significant challenges on the infrastructure. The initial key lessons, and one that we regret, is our lack of communications. I think in times where we have significant delays, I think our passengers expect us to keep them informed, and I think on that front we can do far better. I think it was a fluid situation. I think we have to remember that there was a lot of things happening at the same time, and sometimes essentially acknowledging that we don't know all the facts is reassuring as opposed to staying silent. So communications is one of the key aspects, and the other one is improving our customer care. We have protocols to deal with winter storms where we increase our food and meals aboard. Clearly, that was not sufficient in this case. So part of our lessons learned will be to build on this and then to look at other areas such as operations to see how we improve our performance so we avoid repeating this poor experience for our passengers.
Are there, because you referred to your winter storm protocols, and so one of the consistent themes that we've heard with the airlines as well was the lack of communication, and you touched on that. I mean, from what I recall, there were people still arriving at Union Station in Toronto to catch trains that obviously were not running. And if there's a derailment, as there was, if there's trees on lines and frozen switches, you'd think you'd know that further in advance to let people know so they're not commuting in at that time during a storm into Union Station to catch a train that wasn't going to exist. So is that one of the things you're going to review? Communication seems to be a common gap here.
Absolutely.
And is there, what are the requirements under federal regulation to communicate with customers when these sorts of things happen? Is there a certain time period if there's a delay or cancellation?
Well, obviously, if we have to cancel, the sooner we can inform the passengers, the better. And we had to exercise that through the derailment portion of time, where we were making sure that we could advise passengers the day before if we had to cancel the trains, so to avoid them having to, one, potentially come to the stations, or also they could evaluate alternative scenarios for their travel needs. So that was one of the key learnings, and one that will apply more diligently in the future.
Are requirements or protocols in place for the amount of food and water? So we know in the air industry, for example, that even in this confined space, there's a certain amount of food and water in the front of the plane for if they're stuck on a tarmac, and you run trains across the country for multiple days. So is there a review of that to make sure that 18 hours isn't that long of a period, but obviously there was a shortage by the end?
So I'll ask my colleague Rita to address this.
Thank you, MP Muys. We do have protocols in terms of how we plan for holiday season, winter season, in terms of the amount of food we put on. It's based on number of passengers, but we over above that add X% of number of meals, extra snacks, extra drinks, and so forth. In addition to that, because of our experience over many years, we actually have dried emergency snacks in case of an emergency event where there's an unexpected delay. In addition to that, we also board additional cases of water. So we try as much as possible to plan. No delay is acceptable, and in this particular case, it was beyond anything we'd experienced previously.
Thank you very much, Ms. Toporowski. Unfortunately, we're out of time for that segment, and thank you, Mr. Muys. Prochainement,